Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Britton's Hangout Hour. I am here today. I think it's episode 28. I'm here with JCM Berne, or Joe. I think Joe Berne would be just fine, but you know.
You can call me Joe. Everyone does.
It's fine. Fine author name, but you know what? It's whatever.
Joe has like these connotations, right? It's like average Joe, plumber Joe, and I was like, I don't want that to be my author. Everyone calls me that in real life, right? No one calls me Joseph or anything else. No one's ever called me my initial, but those really are my initials. Are really JCM. But when I was writing a book, I realized like I was so confident about everything about my book. Like I knew what title I wanted, I knew the tone, the characters. But then it came like, what do you want your name to be? And I had no clue. And I wrestled for like a week. I'm like, what do I want my name? It was never part of my vision to figure this out. And I came up with JCM. I'm not sure it was the right choice, but I'm stuck to it now. So all my authors are under JCM.
But if you'd like to introduce yourself, I like to do this little thing real quick. Feel free. Like, what do you do?
JCM Berne. I'm author of Blissful Ascending and the rest of the Hybrid Helix. And hopefully I'll have 2 more books coming out this fall, late summer, beginning of fall. The 4th book in the Hybrid Helix. I know there's 2 more. I have these awesome covers done by Chris McGrath, who you may know as the guy who does the Dresden Files.
Oh, and yeah. That's cool.
Same artist. That's literally how I found him. I was sitting there like, who do I want to do my covers? I had no idea. So I turned around and I found the first book I liked on my shelf behind my desk. Like, oh, I like the Dresden covers. Who did these? And I looked up his name and I emailed him and I'm like, he's never going to take a work from me. And he did. And he's like, sure, I'll do it. Just got to pay me. I was like, all right.
Yeah, so, I found you from Tori's channel. Or I think that's where I first heard of you. And then then you commented on one of my videos. You're like, hey, you like comics. I do too. And I'm like, we got to talk.
I saw your video posted on a Discord and it was, I don't know what it was. The video that I watched. It might have been the last one. It was pretty recent. And I was like, oh, I'll watch that. I like comics. Because I'm a comics guy. Like, I probably spent more time reading comics than books. Like, I write books, but I can't draw. Right?
Yeah.
And and comics are a huge influence on my novels. When I talk to other people, like, it's mostly the people who have interviewed me have been mostly, and I'm grateful for all the attention, but it's been mostly like fantasy and sci-fi people, which is, I love it. It's great, but they like don't understand or get the roots of a lot of the storylines. Sometimes people do, but many people just don't because they're not comics people. So like I'll tell them, oh yeah, I was really influenced by Jim Starlin, and they're like, who? Like, oh, don't
yes.
say that.
You've written Wistful Ascending, which is like a space. I've heard it be described as a space opera, but also a superhero story. Which kind of, I'm like, oh man, when I read this, it's gonna be interesting because I how do you put it? I with superheroes, they're so like ingrained in comics, at least in America, that is.
First of all, it's a story I wanted to write. So, like, if I could draw, I'd probably be doing comics.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But I can't draw. Like, I tried. I'm not. I'm sure I could have worked really hard and been better than I am now, but I don't think I ever would have been great. But regardless, I never did it. I'm a decent enough writer, I think. I mean, that's for readers to decide, not for me. But I can write a novel, right?
That's something you can do.
I can definitely string together 120,000 words and put it together and publish it, and people will read it and go, "Oh, that's a book," right? There's no doubt I can do that, and I can't draw. So I really wanted to tell. I like superhero stories. I always wanted to tell superhero stories, and superhero novels are not super popular. They do happen. There is an industry of it. There are a bunch of superhero books. I don't mean like Marvel books. I mean like proprietary universe stuff where people just make up their own superhero universe. It's not super popular.
Even Brandon Sanderson's kind of dabbled in the superhero.
Yeah, The Reckoning, which I did not like. We can discuss that if you want. I read the first one.
I haven't read any of Brandon Sanderson's stuff, but
The Reckoning, the series is very YA, and it's YA in the ways that really annoy me, and I have very low tolerance for YA. Most of the reason I write is grumpy old man motivation. Like I'll read something. I've said
show
this
these
before.
whippersnappers how to tell a superhero story.
It's not so much that, but it's more like I'll read something and I'll love it, but there'll be something in there that just annoys the heck out of me. I'll say, if I could just fix that. I mean, the primary motivation for the Hybrid Helix was a problem I had with Invincible, which I love.
Oh, I
Don't
love
get me wrong.
Invincible.
Love Invincible, read the series. I love the show. If anything, I love the show more, at least so far. Yeah, I have the 3 big fat compendiums in my yeah. I've got those. I love that is a fantastic read.
Yeah, it's
I love it so
it's a
much.
godsend. Those
There
compendiums.
was one particular I don't want to say plot hole, but like an internal consistency problem in it that just bugged me, and I was like, I've got to fix this. So I wrote a whole series of novels based on fixing this one. And it's not me saying Invincible's bad. It's me saying I had one problem with it, and I loved it
Here's
generally.
my take on how I would have fixed that.
It's my take on how I would have fixed it, because the whole, I don't know if it's a spoiler. The problem is, me explaining it is a spoiler for Invincible.
Well, I've read
Right?
the whole thing, but probably.
Well, I don't know if your audience has. So if
Yeah,
you've
no.
watched Invincible,
Yeah.
mute me for the next 2 minutes or whatever. But I always felt like with Invincible, it's like other Viltrumites would have gone off and like had a bunch of kids in order to conquer the universe somewhere along their 10,000-year history. You know that whole plot line where the guy does it? He goes to the place with the bugs and he
Oh, yeah.
has like 3,000 kids.
Thrag,
I'm like,
yeah.
that is, you can't have a balance of power where there's this like super powerful nation going on for thousands of years and not one of those individuals thinks, oh, if I go off and like find a really fertile population, I can just breed them, super soldiers.
I thought that's what they were trying to do, though, like on Earth.
That one guy did it. That one guy did, but no one else did. The other Viltrumites didn't do that, right? They very specific. They would send a Viltrumite to planets. They would take it over, but they weren't really supposed to have a bunch of kids and create, Viltrumites everywhere. But the one guy did with the like half insect people.
Yeah, with the insect people. Yeah.
Matured really fast, right? That was the idea, and I'm like, you can't tell me that other Viltrumites haven't said, well, screw this, I'm going to take over by this mechanism. So I created a whole series where the whole point was answering that question. Because it's the kind of thing that bothers me, right? If you got this setup, it's like, why hasn't someone else thought of doing this thing in the last 10,000 years or whatever your history is? Like, conquer the universe. Right? So if you have this setup where that's possible, why hasn't anyone else done it? So if you can't answer that question, it bugs me. That's my grumpy old man.
Fair enough.
But
no, I do love Invincible as well.
Yeah, so good. And it's not a deconstruction. I just watched your deconstruction video.
I was about to say, I don't think I mentioned Invincible. Or did I? I don't know.
No, I'm agreeing with you. But one of the things I find, what I love about Invincible is so much, in my opinion, so many of the comic properties meant for grown-ups, ones that are written for a mature audience, are deconstructions. They're trying to take superheroes and make them super grim or super gritty or super violent, right? They're doing that. The things you pointed out in your video, right? And when Invincible doesn't, like, it's a little gory.
I was about to say it's pretty infamously gory, but it's not like it's not like grim.
It's not grim, right? The
It's
character
very-
Invincible, he's trying to be a hero.
It's pretty much like if like one of the old Marvel stories was more realistic with how like superhero battles would go.
Stan Lee was writing for 20-year-olds instead of 12-year-olds.
Yes, exactly.
Right? But that's not a deconstruction. That's
It's a reimagining.
imagination. Yeah, and that's what I loved about it, is that it wasn't, I'm going to make this so grim and pornographic and put in a violence for its own sake and make the character like nasty and evil. It's not. The character is very much like,
They're just people,
He's a modern Spider-Man, right? In terms of his personality and his goals. He screws up. He's really trying to be.
That's why I like Invincible, because I'm a huge Spider-Man fan, so I'm like, oh man.
You will, you might, maybe not, you might like my stuff, because what my main character is very much in that vein. Like, he's a guy trying to be a good guy, right? Like, and he fails numerous places, but he's never like, I'm just going to be the nastiest bastard I can be. I don't get there. He's not Butcher.
No. Yeah, Butcher's a whole other thing.
Right. But and there's nothing wrong. And I say this, but I'm like, I have nothing against, the deconstructions. Like, I have nothing against stories where the heroes are nasty, and I have nothing against grimdark. It's just like not what I wanted to write. and it's not my
Yeah, no,
first.
you wanted to do something. You wanted to do more like Invincible. You didn't want to You didn't want to do The Boys.
It's exactly right. It's what I was. And again, it's funny because I have these conversations for the most part with fantasy people who don't know those properties.
Oh,
they don't see that polarity with the way you do, which is what's one of the reasons I was looking forward to this talk. But yeah, so no, I'm very much trying to do something much more like Invincible or like Guardians of the Galaxy.
Mm-hmm.
I foolishly thought people would leave like Thor 3 and go, that was great, and I want to read books like that, and it's not true.
I liked it. I had some friends who didn't like it. I was like, "What? The movie was awesome! Like that was the best Thor movie."
I thought 3 was phenomenal. It had everything has flaws, but I thought it was phenomenal. 4,
I didn't like what they. The only thing I didn't like what they did to the Warriors 3 in that movie. I like the Warriors 3.
Yeah, you're never gonna get a Marvel movie that makes everybody happy at every every minute. You can't. There's too much. Entrenched emotion in those storylines. I was trying to write a book that I'm like, if you like Thor 3, you'll like this book. That was my goal. And did I succeed? I don't know. But finding an audience who wants to read a book like Thor 3 has not been easy. That's what's funny. I thought this would be a vast untapped audience, and if it's true, I have not tapped it. I have a lot of readers, but it didn't take off as well as I thought, which is fine. It's been a journey.
I enjoy superheroes as well. I've covered some. Have I covered some super? I think I covered Batman Year One on this channel, but it's really old and it's really bad, and I don't like it. So I'll have to redo that at some point. But
You mean your video is old?
Yeah, no, it's like 4 years old. Like,
who did Batman Year One? Was that Frank Miller?
That was Frank Miller. Yeah, I have it right here or over here.
I had so much love for Frank Miller back in the day, and then and he went crazy.
I was about to say his Daredevil stuff is good.
I didn't even read those when they came out. I read them in like compilations shortly after. Like I wasn't up on Daredevil when he was writing it.
I do. Big Batman guy. So I think Dark Knight Returns is like but I do love Year One. I don't like Frank Miller's art style. To be honest with you. If it's something like Sin City where the world is like really nasty and mean, like okay, like it works, but like, and don't get me wrong, like it is fitting into Dark Knight Returns because the world is a bit like meaner than like the one Batman left, but I just don't like it. It looks like someone tried to like copy Jack Kirby, but like with steroids.
Yeah, I feel like Frank Miller was better when he was like less confident, more reined in. I feel the same way about what is his name, Taika Waititi.
Oh, Taika Waititi, yeah.
Yeah, like I love. That's why I love Thor 3, but Thor 4, I'm like, he was given too much power. Let him go. They're like, you do whatever you want, and he did, and it wasn't a great movie because he went overboard. He was too much himself. Like early Frank Miller's Daredevil artwork, I thought was good, because he wasn't like full blown. He wasn't like full 100% Frank Miller, unrestrained, with no one saying, "Stop it, Frank! Like calm down! Like don't go crazy."
He also did All-Star Batman and Robin: The Boy Wonder, which is a horrible comic that I love. That I love, despite myself.
I really loved Sin City. I wanted to write noir because of how much I love those stories. And I don't know if they were good. I liked in my mind.
For me. There's like The Hard Goodbye is very good. I like that Yellow Bastard. And there's some other ones that are just like okay, and then there's just some other ones where I'm like, what the hell was he doing?
He was doing whatever he wanted. I'm telling you, that's the problem. Like some people need an editor, right? They need someone above them saying, "Don't go nuts. Like don't be full you. Like restrain yourself."
Yeah, I think Grant Morrison is one of those guys, too, because sometimes he'll just go on the... I don't know if you've read Grant Morrison, but he's gone on, like, whack. He's gone to some weird directions with his stuff.
I've read some of everybody.
Okay.
I'm 52, and I've read a lot of comics, right? It doesn't mean I've read all of their stuff, but I've read some of everybody. And I was basically from the age of, like, 10 to 40, I was in a comic book shop pretty much every week when the Diamond delivery came through, buying comics. Then I had to stop.
Yeah, I was going to ask you if you've read Black Hammer. I mean, it's not... That was another one I didn't bring up in my deconstruction video, because it's not really, but I enjoy it. I'm rereading it right now.
I don't think I have read Black Hammer. Who's that by?
It's Jeff Lemire.
Okay.
I think you would like that one.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of comics. Right?
I know. Yeah, there's a lot of them out there.
I was watching your interview with, what is his name? JCK? This was like AJP. I got all the letters wrong.
Oh,
AJP.
Yeah.
Just the other day. And I'm like, I know that one. And like some of the stuff he said, I'm like, I didn't. But I've read a lot of manga too. So he was hitting on some manga that I appreciate. Also, I went through a whole... I was reading manga like when they were first coming to this country, when they were just like publishing them like regular comics. But when the Tankobon came out, I was staying with it. And then, once all the scanlation sites were up, I read a lot.
Yeah, and I'm really picky with my manga, because like there's some of it that's like really silly, and I know that's rich. I love superheroes, but I'm like manga can get too silly, but like there's some of them I'm like, man. Now there are good manga out there, but it's...
You mentioned Bubba, and he's fighting villains with his nose hairs.
Oh
right?
God, I was talking about that with I was actually talking about that with AJP. I'm like, there was this anime I watched. This guy had like nose hair. He was fighting like bald evil, this evil bald guy. He's like, yeah, bo. I'm like, yes, that is awesome. I love that.
I saw that at a con, right? Like, must have been 20 years ago at an Otakon. And they're showing it. And cons, this is before, like, anime conventions in the late 90s, early 2000s. Like, you didn't know all this stuff. You didn't just stream it all. You didn't just, like, pirate it all, right? You kind of couldn't. It wasn't widely available. So you go to a con, and someone would dig something up that no one had ever seen. And you're all watching, like, this is amazing. So we saw that at a convention. We were all blown away. I was sitting in a room full of, like, 300 people watching this guy fight with his nose hairs. And it was quite amazing. But there's a lot of good stuff going on.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's like because, like, I grew up reading, cause I'm weird. I like reading like old stuff, and I remember I liked toys growing up, and that's some of the first comics I read there were little comics in the toys, and I would read them.
Oh, yeah.
There was like one with it was actually, funnily enough, it was like some of the issues leading up to like the night Gwen Stacy died, that whole arc. Like reading that and like some of the old like Jack Kirby and Stan Lee Fantastic Four issues. I mean, I have a soft spot for Fantastic Four for that reason.
Yeah, I remember getting the like reprints. I'm not old enough to have read Fantastic Four like early stuff when it was coming out. But getting the reprints, they would print. Marvel was printing compilations in the '70s, the little paperbacks, late '70s. I was getting those, and I love those old. I still want to know like why Mole Man isn't around anymore.
Yeah, no. It's weird because the superhero genre has kind of gone through a bunch of changes. Like back in the day, it was like that kind of simpler, just doing fun stories, and then then Alan Moore and the British people showed up. It's like, oh, here's a different way to do superhero stories, and then now we're kind of not sure how to do good superhero stories anymore. There's still like really great modern superhero stuff,
yeah. I enjoyed my I just ran out of space. I got to a point where I was like, I have like 30 big boxes of comic books, and I was like, I can't just keep doing this. I don't have room. I don't have a place to put them. Every time I move, I have to move all these boxes. And I had Marvel Unlimited for a while, but then they changed their interface. It got really hard to like pick up an issue and then go to the back issues. Something weird, and I slowed down on that. But there's a lot of good stuff out there. You have to pick and choose. But I was around for Marvel a lot when I was a kid, and then I was around when the first like real indie explosion happened, the black and white indie explosion.
Yeah.
In the mid '80s, and then you got a lot of really interesting things coming out because it was cheap. They were printing black and white. You could sell black and white comics. I remember when Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles first came out, and that was really cool and like really interesting. And then now it's like everyone thinks of it as a kids show, and I'm like, oh my god. The Turtles weren't for kids. They were like grim and they were like commentary on Frank Miller's Daredevil and X-Men, John Byrne X-Men. It was all the elements came from there. And
Yeah,
then people
no,
think
it's
it's a cartoon.
I always snicker when I see the Turtles being this big phenomenon, because I'm like, man, this started out as a parody of Frank Miller's Daredevil that two guys in their basement just did for laughs, and then it just blew up from there.
It blew up. I remember I got the 5th printing of issue number 1, or 6th, or something like that, of the black and white, because it sold. Everyone bought it. It was the crazy, and then everyone published ripoffs, adolescent, mutant, radioactive hamsters and stuff. All these different titles are coming out at the same time, and now people don't remember parody roots, and people are watching TMNT and who have never read Frank Miller or Daredevil or John Byrne X-Men. I'm like, okay.
I admittedly have not read John Byrne's X-Men, or not X-Men. I haven't read his Fantastic Four. I have read him and Chris Claremont's X-Men though. Which I still think is the best X-Men stuff. So, yeah, in my opinion, anyway.
It's not. It's hard to beat. One of the first comics I got was the end of the Dark Phoenix saga.
Oh yeah.
And then it was going around. I mean, I bought it off a newsstand, and they were all kids in the 4th grade in New York City trying to find back issues and fill in all the issues from 94 to 137 to figure out what the heck happened. But yeah, it was good stuff. I mean, those are some good stories, and pretty groundbreaking. That was good. I was big on Jim Starlin, early Warlock.
Oh yeah, so you like cosmic stuff?
I really do, which is one of the reasons I'm writing about a superhero on a space station. The Warlock Magus, the original Warlock story, is really good comics. It's a time travel. You know the premise of it? Are you familiar with this one?
With what?
So the Magus was this purple guy who was running this church that was oppressing people, and Warlock was fighting him.
Oh,
and the whole premise was the Magus was Warlock from the future, and he knew it. He knew he was fighting this guy who was his nemesis, who was oppressing the galaxy, and he knew he was going to become him one day, come back in time and do all this stuff. The Magus was him from the future, and he was aware of it. I'm like, that's a really cool, that's kind of a mind-blowing concept for early 1970s, and I'm reading this as a kid. I'm like, this is neat. There was some good stuff back then.
Yeah, no, I've read Jim Starlin's Thanos stuff, where or I read the Infinity Gauntlet stuff.
It's a little repetitive.
Which I admit I don't love. Which
yeah.
I don't know if it's just I'm not disinterested in cosmic stuff, but I guess I'm more I like Spider-Man and Batman and the X-Men.
I like the cosmic stuff, and I like the street level stuff.
Yeah.
I like the Daredevil. I got really into Master of Kung Fu, which is not. I'm a martial arts guy. I love martial arts stories.
Did you see the Shang-Chi movie?
Yeah, I love. Well, I like to make it okay. I am not ever going to be rational about the Shang-Chi movie. Because I read that comic. That was the comic that I kind of if I was sick and I was home from school, I'd read the whole run of Master Kung Fu. I must have read it a dozen times.
Is that the Shang-Chi one, or is that the Karate Kid from DC?
Oh, Master of Kung Fu is Shang-Chi.
Oh, okay.
That was the full title.
Maybe I'm not familiar with the comics, so
So the comics were they were weird, right? It was weird. It was it started out as a rip. They started out trying to tell a rip-off of James Bond. So it's all British spies fighting against this very racist Asian super evil dude, Fu Manchu, who had a history in super racist books, the Satsuma estate, right? Where British detectives were fighting against the Yellow Peril. I mean, it was very bad.
Yeah.
But Marvel got the rights to Fu Manchu, and then someone's like, well, this Bruce Lee guy is popular. Can we do something with him? They basically stuck the character in to this spies versus Fu Manchu storyline, and then kind of wedged him in there and made him the star. And he looks, if you look at the early issues, he looks like Bruce Lee, like his face is
Well,
similar
yeah,
and stuff.
Bruce Lee was really popular in the 70s, so.
Yes, yeah. This is when the Bruce Lee phenomenon was like bashing America, and we know how Marvel is. If something's cool, they'll make at least back in the day they make some comic exploiting it. And the Silver Surfer doesn't ride a surfboard for no reason,
Yeah.
right?
I
It's
actually
like
have. I have
Stanley saw a Beach Boys song, and he's like, let's use this,
Yeah, I
or
mean,
something.
I know Stan Lee has sort of a controversial, I guess, reputation, but that man knew how to tap on a vein. I'll put it that way. He's very gifted at that.
I didn't realize. I mean, it wasn't transparent to me when I was young. But then you look at a title like Power Man and Iron Fist, and you realize he's just like, oh, the young people, they like kung fu movies and they like blaxploitation movies. Let's put these two characters together in one title, and everyone will read it. And I'm like, it doesn't make any sense, But that's what Power Man and Iron Fist
That's
were.
awesome.
Let's tack on to all the genres and all the exploited in his in the most basic way, and that's what the stories came from. Master Kung Fu was neat because it was a fundamentally good storyline. Like the character was his father was like this supervillain and had raised him to be an assassin. He goes to kill his father's greatest enemy on an assignment. He's like, I'm not sure this is the right thing to do, and he spends the rest of his life fighting his dad. Like, that's a fundamentally pretty good story, although Fu Manchu's a fundamentally racist villain. It's okay. The other thing
it
is,
reminds me of Invincible a little bit.
Yeah, well, in a way it is. But they can't use those stories. They can't reprint them, right? They can't put them on Marvel Unlimited because they keep losing the rights to Fu Manchu because Fu Manchu is part of the Sax Rohmer estate. They keep losing the intellectual property. So when they have it, they'll reprint everything, but then they can't keep it.
That's probably why they reimagined his dad as the Mandarin in the movie, I'm sure.
That, and I think to avoid some of the racism stuff.
Yeah.
Like they could never sell that movie in China if his dad was Fu Manchu. Like, that would never fly.
They'd be picketing that movie.
Yeah. But that movie, I thought the first 2/3 of that movie were really good. And I thought the ending was pretty bad, but COVID hit and they had limited resources, and I'm willing to forgive them. And I don't know that I liked Simu Liu in that role. I don't know if he was the perfect choice from a marketing perspective. I like him. I thought he's funny.
That train fight, though, was so good. Like, the fight choreography was
really
good.
It was, and you know what? It was so much better than Iron Fist.
I was about to say, it probably has my favorite MCU choreography aside from Captain America the Winter Soldier and Daredevil.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't watch the Iron Fist, but I heard it wasn't that good.
It was a little heartbreaking because it was both terrible, and they managed to write 2 seasons of it where in the last 10 minutes of the last episode, it seemed like it might be going somewhere really good, and then it never happened. So it was sort of like that. It's like the side character got the power of the Iron Fist, and she looked very cool, and was a much better actress and a much better character than Iron Fist in the show, and then it was done. You're like, I watched 2 seasons of this show to get 10 quality minutes at the very end. It was heartbreaking.
Yeah, admittedly, I was particularly sad that Daredevil and Luke Cage got canceled because I thought Luke Cage was pretty underrated.
I liked Luke Cage quite a bit. The Defender show was not good.
It was fine, I thought, but
at most it was fine. It wasn't good, right? It was fine. I'll agree with you. It was fine. But and I like Jessica Jones well enough.
The first season's great, and I heard the other 2 seasons are kind of not good.
Yeah, that's fair. But I really like Daredevil.
It made me want to read the Alias comics though, because I like Brian Michael Bendis.
I do too, and I have not read those. And I think I would like to at some point.
His Daredevil run is exceptional, I thought.
Yeah. There are a lot of good Daredevil runs. Daredevil's, I don't love the character, but he's had so many good stories written about him. Somehow. I don't really know why. I never thought about it.
Frank Miller saw him, he's like, I think I could write this guy, and Marvel's like, go ahead, go do it.
It was what Frank Miller did was so cool. It's like he put in like ninjas and Elektra, and he put this martial arts like Eastern like bent to it. He did the same thing to Wolverine. It's like, let's have Wolverine fight ninjas, and that's how
he loves
got
ninjas,
the Wolverine
man.
Yeah,
and
why
Nazis
not?
That's kind of troubling. He likes the swastika.
Yeah. But at the
I don't
time,
think he
it was
likes
so
Nazis,
cool.
but he likes the swastika for whatever reason.
Yeah, and then he kind of lost his mind at 9/11, and then everything ever since has been a little bit off. But I know a guy who used to drink with Frank Miller because he lives in the city. He did. I don't know if he still does. Now I just keep seeing his name when he comes up with covers for things, and everyone freaks out because like they think they're terrible or they think they're amazing. I guess I don't know. I can't keep track.
It's hard for me to like just go like, okay, Frank Miller is doing a thing. I saw his Wolverine one. I was like, oh man, ah.
You know what I mean about having an editor? But
I
like,
know.
yeah,
Now
he's
his
doing
art
this.
in like the miniseries he did with Chris Claremont is not bad. Like it's actually pretty good.
His early stuff is I like a lot. I think when he had an editor before he decided I can do whatever I want, he was a better artist, you know. And then he decided I can be stylized. I can do this any way I want to, and it went off the rails in my opinion. But Ronin, I really liked the original story. It was like really kind of groundbreaking for what it was, like the first like limited series, like premium printing. Now he's doing a sequel to it. I have not read it, um, but it was cool stuff.
I know it's I read Ronin a while back and I'm like, this is kind of like Moebius and like
Mm-hmm.
Lone Wolf and Cub. And again, his art style is it's hard for me to unless it's like Sin City. Like it's
Yeah.
hard for me to get into because it's like it's not pleasant to look at. In my opinion,
Yeah.
there's some people who will
Oh,
disagree. There's some people who like them,
no,
and that's
no.
fine.
I hear you. I hear you. I can definitely see that. Ronan was just I feel like reading it in context, like reading it when it came out, it was like kind of groundbreaking and like really different and really interesting. I think going back and reading it now, it's like, know, something might be groundbreaking, but it doesn't really mean it's good, right? Like every War of the Worlds, War of the Worlds is not fun to read
It's
because
like a news report, yeah.
yeah, but all these ideas are so people you read it and it's like you've seen these ideas rehashed a million times.
Yeah, I know.
When it
That's.
first came out, that was like super original, right? It was like it must have been mind blowing in whenever that book came out. I
I mean,
forget,
I don't know if
late
you. I don't know how much like animated stuff you watch, but if you've ever seen Samurai Jack,
oh yeah, I've
it
seen all
basically
Samurai.
it's basically it took the idea of Ronin and just made it good. And just
Yeah,
and the animation is just amazing.
yeah, that was a really good show. That was a really good show. I have seen that. I've watched more probably Japanese. I watch more anime probably than American animation, but I did
That's
see
fair.
Samurai Jack.
There's a lot of anime
Samurai
out there.
Jack, and what else was really good? I'm really big fan of Steven Universe.
That's good though. There is some of it that like, what's the word? It gets a little saccharine. Is that it? It gets a little It is a little too like, oh, let's hug and be all friendly, and I'm just like, ugh, you know. And like that's
Yeah,
fine, but like it's fun. Like there's like some really good episodes in that series.
yeah,
So, but there's
yeah.
sometimes I'm like, okay,
It
it's
was,
getting a little too cutesy for my.
but because it was interesting though because it was so cutesy, and then it had just a little more depth than you would think based on how cutesy it was.
Yeah.
I was kind of
I
like
like
that.
the
Like I'm
song.
not
I
saying it
like the
was super
music
cute.
too. So I do love the
Yeah,
music of
they did
Steven
a good
Universe.
job with that. They did a good job with that show, and it comes across as a super like saccharine kids show for like 5 minutes. Then you realize there's a little more to it, not a ton more, but there's more to it than that. I really like that twist.
Yeah, no, I mean, I grew up in the age where like superhero films were starting to like blow up. Like I remember when Iron Man came out and saw that, and I was like, man, this is awesome.
Yeah,
And like I grew up watching like Batman the animated series and like the Raimi Spider-Man movie. I grew up when like Image was really blowing up again. So that's really the comics I
um,
enjoy nowadays.
right.
I do
Yeah,
love
there's some.
superheroes though. There's a lot of great stuff.
Yeah, there was some good image stuff and some good image superhero stuff. I liked wasn't Wildstorm image,
Like
and then
Invincible.
was Invincible image? I
Yeah.
forgot. Yeah, and
Oh
what was
god.
Planetary?
I think that's DC technically, but I think that's Wildstorm, yeah, or something like that. I haven't read Planetary, or actually, I read the first volume. I need to go back and like actually read it again because I like
really
that
like
first volume, but
yeah, I really like Planetary and the Authority. I always link them in my mind, but because I think I read them at the same time.
Oh
But,
dang! I should have brought up the Authority in my deconstruction video because I don't like the Authority. The Authority.
No,
No.
the deconstruction. I can see that.
No. It just kind of seems like a edgier Watchmen, and but it doesn't have like the point of Watchmen where you're just like, maybe it's one of those things where it's like I'm looking back. Maybe I'm not like, I don't know. I've heard Warren Ellis's stuff on it. It's pretty good.
I don't think I read the Authority. I wasn't thinking of it as a deconstruction. I was thinking of it as a cool like reimagining of all these characters, as opposed to like, let's make them grittier. Let's just make them cooler. And I always liked the ship, the interdimensional, the big ship, went in between universes. That whole multiverse stuff that the British people love. That always seemed to come in from the Alan Moores with the multiverse.
Yeah.
I always got a kick out of that.
Yeah, I mean, I like parallel universe stuff, so I'm down for that.
I can take some of it. I can't write it. I can't take it seriously because there's the whole like it's like time travel, right? Those stories are so hard to make internally consistent. If you can travel, there's multiple universes.
I don't touch time travel with like I don't touch that with a pole. I'm like, nope.
It's a different level of you have to have a different level of like suspension of disbelief. Like I'm a big Doctor Who fan.
I like it too. I haven't watched it in a long time, but I do like Doctor Who quite a bit.
Yeah, I spent a long time watching all the old ones. They used to show them on like PBS in the middle of the night on like Saturday where I used to live. And I watched all the original, all the stuff that's still around, which is only a tiny fraction of like the first 3 Doctors. Like, a huge chunk of their shows are gone. You can't get them anymore. They just lost. They lost the tape. But I love that stuff, but you can't take it seriously because it doesn't really make any sense. Like if you think about it too hard, you're like, okay, this doesn't make. Like, why doesn't he travel here and do this to fix this problem? And if you ask those questions too hard, the whole show falls apart. You have to just take it out.
It kind of runs with the silliness of the genre, or of the idea, which is why I like Doctor Who. I watch the newer stuff. I'm really bad at going back to the old stuff. I know like Tom Baker's really like big. He was like the David Tennant of his era, pretty much.
Yeah, he did it for a long time, and he was very charismatic and fun. So, yeah.
If I remember right, I think he inspired David Tennant to actually go for Doctor Who.
Yeah, because if you look at the third Doctor, he took himself a little more serious. Like, everyone is different, which is one of the things that makes the show kind of interesting. We don't all play it the same way. Like, the different actors play it differently.
Well, yeah, that's what's cool.
Yeah, but the third Doctor was a little more like, I'm taking myself a little more seriously. And then Tom Baker came along and said, I'm going to take myself more goofily. And he did it really well, so...
Yeah, no, I just realized the other day, Sean Pertwee, the actor?
Yeah.
He's in, like, Dog Soldiers, he's Alfred on Gotham. I just realized he was John Pertwee, who was the third Doctor. That's his son. I was like, how did I not get that?
Oh, I don't think I put that together either. That's crazy. That's great. But I love the Doctor, this concept of this, like, this person who's, like, guardian of the Earth or guardian of the the galaxy or whatever. Oh, I put an equivalent in my... I've actually taken a few things I've stolen from Doctor Who. I have a whole, like, unimportant race in my books of people with rhinoceros heads. And actually in an early draft, I used the same name that they have in the Doctor Who show, which I can't remember now. And a friend of mine beta read it, and he's like, you're going to get a copyright infringement. I'm like, nobody cares about me, man. No one's going to sue me for using this name. And he's like, just in case, maybe you should give them a different name. Fine. I changed their name.
There's like, it's funny because like in some of the recent seasons, Doctor Who's gotten like this little motley crew, and there's like this little guy running around with him. I can't remember what he's called, but he has like this. I just think his appearance is hilarious. He has like purple armor, and he's like bald, and he's just like, oh yes, I'm.
Centauran?
Yes, Doctor Sir. What?
The Centaurans with the triangle head.
Yeah, or
Just
something like that. I'm like, what?
yeah. I've always loved. So it's campy. You've got to take it for what it
Yeah,
is.
I know. No, that's why I like it. It's very campy. It's kind of like Star Trek, where you're kind of like, okay.
Yeah, yeah. So I watched a lot of Doctor Who. Um, Frank Miller. Yeah, Invincible. Invincible is
Wasn't
very
the show
motivational.
amazing?
I was huge. I was blown away by the show. I like. I was on a streak there because I thought that show was amazing. If anything, I thought it was better than the comic. And how often do you say that, right? About anything?
The Boys, I'll give you that. Invincible, I'd say they're the same in terms of like quality.
Fair enough.
Though I will admit, I do think they handled Omni-Man's betrayal a lot better in the show than in the comics. Because in the comics, it's just kind of like, oh, he's murdered everybody. in the show, they build it up like, why did he do it, and like, what is he gonna do, and it's like tension throughout the season. I'm like, what's he gonna do?
And I'm really bummed that that it's taken so long to get season 2 out.
I know, man. I want to see it so bad.
Yeah, I really do. Really do. That show is fantastic. The Boys, I thought the show. I have to reread the comic because I read it as it came out, and I haven't really sat down and reread the run of The Boys. So like, it was like over 8 or 9 years I was reading those issues, and I have them all in boxes somewhere. But I thought the show was phenomenal.
The show's great.
And I think toning down some of the, like, you were talking about this a little bit the other day, right? Like so much like gratuitous like violence and like nastiness for its own sake.
Yeah, no,
it's like you're trying to shock me and go, oh, cool.
I'll put it this way. I've talked about it before, but I can understand why people don't like the comic of The Boys. Because it's very gratuitous in what it does. Now I do love Billy Butcher. He's great.
The show had some pretty grim moments, but they were spread out and they seemed to serve a purpose.
Like they have the black comedy, but it's not like really just nothing like the comics where it's just like there's one where they're like gang it's like they how do you put this politely
You can't. That's the point.
You can't. That's true. You can't.
You can't make it politely. Yeah. But, good luck.
But
but the show actually has some really.
They basically like
stuff.
humiliate like Starlight for like fun, and I'm just like, that's just too mean. But come on.
Yeah.
Now in the show they play it like better, I think.
They tone it down some, but they have it, but it's like punctuations, right? There's like a gruesome moment, and then you're good for a while. But like the deep eating the octopus was one of the most like cringy. Like I was like, I can't believe I just saw that. But it's like it's not visually like crazy, and
it's just like, oh my god.
It makes the point. Like anytime if you think Homelander's a good guy, watch that scene and then like come back to me.
Oh, I don't. It's really weird with Homelander because like he's a monster, bad guy, just awful. But like there's still like he isn't completely a monster, I guess. Like he's still human, but he's still like a bad guy, even when you feel bad for him.
He's a monster, but you can sort of understand like you can understand him, but we could probably understand a lot of monsters if we knew enough about like their upbringing and like what they went through. And I'm sure if we had the right like insight, we could say, I kind of get why Hitler was so angry. It doesn't mean he wasn't a monster, right?
No, that's the thing. Like I get why Homelander's that way. It doesn't excuse what he's doing, but
exactly. That's what's beautiful about it, right? Because if he was just evil for like kind of no reason, that's boring. Like that's like, oh wait, if they just said, oh, the substance, the V, or whatever it's called,
the
just
compound V.
That's what I didn't like about the Sanderson's The Reckoning series.
Oh, what he has like a compound V like thing.
It's not. I forget the origin story, but it's very specifically all of the people with superpowers are evil. Something about having powers makes you like it like takes away your like conscience.
Oh,
So it's like almost in a magical way.
I can
right?
see
So
I can see how that kind of I can see how that might rub some people the wrong way.
rubbed me the wrong way because I'm like, well, that's boring. Like if they all have, if you have a bunch of guys with superpowers and you've got reasons and you can understand that how they were raised and why it made them nasty, that's fine.
Like
But if it's just a side effect of their powers, I'm like
that's another thing I have an issue with the boys that I think the show did better. I don't love that the boys are all like they use the compound V to like so they can fight with the superheroes. In the show, they're just regular people, and they have to think more. They have to be more clever in order to outwit the superheroes, which isn't too hard with some of them.
yeah, right.
Because a lot of them are idiots.
That part is realistic, at least. Because most people are idiots, so not my readers, but generally speaking,
a lot of people are dumb. Though I will say, like I was talking about this. This is another thing I was talking about with a friend of mine the other day. Was like I feel bad for the Deep, even though I shouldn't feel bad for the Deep. I shouldn't.
That's what I'm saying. Like, he's such a jerk, but then you watch that octopus scene and you're like, of course he's a jerk. Like, what twist does he have? Like, and he is kind of an idiot.
He is an idiot. He's a dumbass. But
yeah, and like he's treated like crap. I mean, it's a super interesting character, and it's super interesting that on some level, like the fact that they're sort of, I mean, I wouldn't say they've reformed the Deep, but they certainly make him a sympathetic character, and he commits like sexual assault like very early on. Mm-hmm. Like that's kind of a bold move. Take a guy who with that history and like over a couple seasons make you feel some sympathy for him. That's hard.
Even though he's
I think
a bad
they pulled
guy.
it off really well.
Which
he's still a bad guy, right? But you don't watch the next season going, man, I hope the Deep gets tortured to death, right?
No.
You don't want that, and the fact that after everything he's done at the end of it, you're not feeling that way. That's impressive storytelling. They did a really nice job.
He's just an idiot, and he's also just a bad guy. He's just not a good guy.
I wouldn't want him as a neighbor.
No. I do think it's hilarious that he joins the cult. I'm like, oh, of course he'd get suckered into a cult. He's that kind of guy, Of course he would get sucked into that.
He is. That was such a good show. I'm impressed. I was very impressed.
Yeah, no,
Did you see The Tick?
I have not. I want to. I've heard it's good.
It's another one of those comics, very deliberately meant to be funny, and another one where the show might have been better than the original. It had a few shows, right? It had like 3. There was a cartoon a long time ago that I really liked. Then it had a live action show that was like 1 season, and the live action show on Amazon Prime just a few years ago. And
isn't it Patrick Warburton who plays the Tick?
So good.
I was about to say, good. He's who I think of when I think. Because I've not read like much of the Tick, like I know what he is, but I'm just like, it seems like something. Because I don't know if you've ever seen The Emperor's New Groove, the character of Kronk, like that's the Tick. That's what I think of as the Tick.
Yeah.
Because he's kind of a dumb guy, just kind of
He's naive, vulnerable.
Yeah.
It's the language. And Arthur's the main, really the interesting character. This sort of regular guy with a moth suit who somehow gets embroiled in everything.
I think it's hilarious that he doesn't even remember like his identity. Like he's just like the Tick.
That's the one thing that was interesting about the Tick, right? He never remembers his identity, and you never really find out. There aren't even really clues. And I expected with a show like that, the guy just shows up and he's like, I'm not invulnerable and I fight for justice. And you're like, you're eventually going to get like these little insights into where he may have come from. Oh, look, I've got this made in a secret lab stamp on my butt that I never noticed before. He doesn't even have like a costume. Like his blue.
But I don't think it would be as funny if they revealed it. Because that's the joke, right?
Cause waiting for them to. I guess it is the joke. I guess it's the joke. I kept wanting to know, like, where is he from? What's the goal here? And I never got it. And it might be that there was never supposed to be. But I always look for those things. The show on Amazon was really good. They made Arthur into a sort of a person with a history of mental illness and sort of in this sort of tenuous recovery. Like he's on his meds and he's like trying to get his life together, but it's always on the very edge of slipping up. And then the Tick jumps into his life and has him fighting crime, and things just fall apart. which is really well done.
Yeah, no, I mean, I do want to check that out at some point because like I'm not as like I'm familiar with the Tick, but I've never like read any like the comics. Plus, I thought it was kind of like a newspaper comic where it's like a kind of a gag sort of thing. I don't know.
Yeah, it's got a lot of riffs on different supervillains and stuff, and it's only 2 seasons. It's not going to take up like a million years here. It's like I forget how many episodes it is, but they're short. But they're funny. They're funny. There's a lot of good stuff in there.
I mean, if you don't mind me going back to the boys real quick, I was talking to my friend the other day,
yes.
and I was like, I don't know why I feel bad for the Deep because he's like a bad dude, and he's not sorry, and he's like he's not gonna change. And he's like, no, my friend, that is why you feel bad for him because he's not gonna change, and he's too stupid to know any better. And I'm like, oh, well, I didn't think of it that way. I don't know if that's necessarily right, but I'm like, I guess so. I don't know. But, yeah.
I feel bad for him because you kind of think he couldn't have done any better.
Yeah.
He wasn't gifted with the tools to be a better person. He doesn't have like a strong character, and he's not smart enough to figure it out.
Yeah.
Without one of those, like you sort of see like anyone with his like sort of setup is going to end up being what he is. He's like toxic masculinity.
Pretty much, yeah.
Like, manifest. Like he's a product of his culture and a product of you're not very bright, but you're tough. This is what you're going to be, and you can almost imagine how he was raised and how people treated him when he was like in high school, and he was just going to be a jerk.
Yeah.
Like almost like he had no choice. Well, I don't believe in free will, so I'll say it. He had no choice.
You don't believe in free will?
Oh no, that's a longer video. Not really.
But talk about your superhero stuff. Sadly, I haven't read your book yet. Maybe I
should.
Maybe
I have to say that it's like part of being an indie author. Every time someone says, "I've got to say," but you should.
No,
I don't know if that's true.
No, but it's not that I don't want to. It's just I haven't really just haven't gotten around to it.
There's so much stuff out there. The last thing in the world is I'm going to be mad at someone who hasn't read my books. Like I get it.
Yeah,
my goal is to release enough and have enough of a wave of like reviews and like publicity that people feel compelled to catch up on it. Mm-hmm. There's series you hear about, you keep hearing about it. Eventually, like, all right, fine, I'm going to read it, and that's going to take time, and that's fine. And if someone doesn't read it ever, that's also fine, But yeah, I'm trying to do something like the Dresden Files. I like this idea of these like series of like have you read the Dresden Files, or are you familiar with it?
I am not, but I'm familiar with it. I know what it's about. So
okay, but there's an ongoing story. Like things progress from book to book.
Mm-hmm.
All about Harry Dresden, right?
Uh-huh.
But it's not like you read a book and it ends, right? The story's done, and then the next book it's 6 months later or whatever, and it's another story. And things may have changed right between them. He may have made new friends, made new relationships, whatever. But it's another self-contained story, and I do the same thing. So each book has a beginning, middle, and end. It ends the plot line, but then there are like questions left open, and then we get to the next book, and hopefully I answer some of them.
Well, I mean, I was gonna say like it feels awkward when I talk to authors and I haven't read their book yet, so we could like talk about it. But again, maybe one day. But like give like a pitch for people who like some people who might watch this and be interested in.
Pitch. I'm terrible at this. This is very difficult.
I don't mean to put you on the spot.
Okay.
Like
so,
what? Like
I'll tell you the setup. Imagine it's like it's a little bit like the Marvel universe, right? Like Earth has got a bunch of superheroes on it. There's a bunch of other planets, a bunch of alien races. And the alien race in charge of everything is the Ildroth. And what's interesting about them is they are not that powerful or anything, but when they have children with the other intelligent races of the galaxy, they like live in secret and raise families. Their kids have amazing powers, like Superman level powers. Not quite, not the same powers, but that like take on armies with their bare hands and win. So the Ildroth go around, and like the males go around, and they live on planets, and they have children, and they live in secret because they're not like super tough. They raise their kids sort of in a very disciplinarian, kind of somewhat abusive, almost like a child soldier kind of way, raised them to be obedient, when craving their affection and their attention and their and they raise their kids to be soldiers, and the kids join the army and they maintain this empire. So our guy is from Earth, and he's one of these. So his mom is human, but his dad is one of these aliens. So he was raised kind of, in secret in Vancouver, in Canada. One day he realized, oh, I've got superpowers, and when the book starts, it's like he's 30, right? So we find out that like he was a cape, he wore a costume and fought crime for a while, and then he left and joined this military and fought, for 10 years on wars across half a galaxy, and he got out. And you find out how he got out over the course of the book, like how he earned his freedom. And he's trying to live a quiet life on this space station. He's chilling, and then things happen. Because if things didn't happen, it wouldn't be a book, right?
It would be kind of boring.
Yeah, if he just, there are slices of, him just like, he tows ships, right? He's like basically because I always thought, if you've got superpowers and you're going to get a job, why would you be like a short order cook? Why don't you like use your powers? If you're like the Hulk, you should be like a crane. Go to Manhattan and work. Think how much the Hulk could make working construction in like Manhattan. You go on top of a building and like lift girders up there. You wouldn't need all these machines. Like those machines rent for like tens of thousands of dollars, right? You could just do it with his hands. It's kind of the same thing. He tows ships around to the space station, and then a wormhole opens up, and like a ship full of refugees comes in, and the Empire gets interested in this space station because this wormhole is there, and things get progressively more complicated, and then people from his past are like trying to kill him. So if I tell you, if you like the idea of superheroes in space, I call it guy punching spaceships. It's a terrible punchline or a terrible tagline, but that's what I call it. If someone's at all sounds vaguely interesting, don't listen to me. Go and look at the reviews. Like type Wistful Ascending or JCM Berne into like YouTube or Goodreads and watch. There's a bunch of reviews by people who review books, and they'll pitch it better than me because marketing is not my strong suit.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
But there's a lot of backstory. Like I have a deep history that gets revealed in later books. Like second book, and this is what I do. Right, I'm taking this idea of a superhero in space, and there's a lot of like humor and like the dialogue, but like the story is dead serious. It's not silly. Right? I'm not doing a deconstruction. I'm doing a silly story. So like I do have, if you look in the background here, that's a giant shark. Yes, I have giant. People like the monsters. I have giant monsters in my books, like 100,000-ton bugs kind of thing. And this is giant sharks that are devastating the Earth in book 2, and he's got to stop them somehow. So I take a lot of this stuff and I try to do it I take it seriously, but there's some funny stuff.
So it's a balanced experience, is what you're saying.
Yeah, and they're all reasonably short. They're like 400 pages. And there's some character development. There's more than it's funny. I read reviews and people are like, it was really funny, and then someone else will read it and they're like, there was actually like some character development in here, and I'm like, I never said there wasn't. I'm sorry, it's not just laughs. I don't know what you want. But different people get different things out of it. Book 2 is where he goes back to Earth, and there's a lot of stuff that comic people will appreciate because it's like my riff on the Avengers.
Oh.
So there's a lot of superheroes on Earth that are all like very clearly like, this is my version of the Hulk, and this is my version of Captain America is like a joke. It's a one-line reference, and it's basically if Pacific Rim and the Avengers were mashed into one movie. That's my second book. But if you haven't watched Pacific Rim and you don't like the Avengers, it's gonna be a little tricky to appreciate. But and then book 3 is vampires, and then book 4 is coming out in a couple months. And I don't want to say more about it. But this, it's it is guys punching spaceships, and there's quite a bit of action. There's quite a bit of action, but it's also like a consistent,
wouldn't be a good
relatively
superhero
hard
if there
magic.
weren't any punching in it,
Yeah, and it's because it's in space. They have to punch spaceships. Did you ever read The Griffin? The Griffin was a limited series. It came out from DC.
I'm
This is before
afraid
you were born.
not. That's.
It's very obscure, but it was about like it wasn't in the DC universe. It was like a limited series by DC, but like as a separate thing, like a standalone. And it was basically like these aliens come and they give this guy who's like a jock, just a regular dude, and they say, "Oh, humans are really good. If we put you through this like special process, you get superpowers." Basically, you can punch spaceships, right? So he says, "Sure, I'll go." So he like leaves with them, becomes like a soldier, and then they come back like 10 years later or whatever, and he's like, "I want to go back home." I got a lot of motivation from that because this character basically like there's this fleet of ships orbiting the Earth, and they're like, "We need you to come back," and he's like, "I'm not coming back," and they're like, "Yes, you are," and he basically flies up and punches the ships, right? And I'm like, this is fundamentally like cool, you know?
Yeah, I mean,
I
we
love
all
that
write what we
imagery.
like, you know. It's.
You know, people, on some level, if someone's like, "Why do you write fantasy or why do you write sci-fi?" It's like you're gonna write a Star Wars novel because you think laser swords are cool.
Yeah,
If you don't, why
exactly.
are you writing? Or you need money, right? I don't know. It could if you're writing Star Wars, that could be just you need the money. Fundamentally, it's because or you think a guy tossing fireballs at a dragon is cool, and you write Malazan or whatever. Whatever
Well, yeah,
fantasy.
that's. I mean, like, I would love to do a Star Wars story at some point because I think laser swords are awesome. Like, and space
Why
battles
not?
are cool.
I'm a big Mandalorian fan, so I'm up for that.
Those first two seasons are really good. I haven't seen the third one because I'm like, well, they already reunited Mando and the kid. And what? Why make a third season?
I don't know if the third season was good, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. Like to me, those are different things. Like there's like some things like good. I'm like, okay, like that means it's quality. It's got certain kinds of characteristics, but some things are just fun. And I thought the third season of Mando was just fun for me. I don't know if but I can see where someone says it wasn't good. I'm like, I'm not going to argue. But the first two seasons were pretty good. The
Oh
third
yeah,
one might not have been, but I still enjoyed them. I'm also a big Lone Wolf and Cub fan from way back.
yeah. I
Um,
started reading that like it was about a year back, I think, and then I was like, I need to pick it up again at some point because I got like
I
an
read them
omnibus.
all. I read them all, and I watched the movies, which I really liked. But they're Japanese, like early '70s samurai movies, so their pacing is not what you expect as a modern viewer. Like I tried to watch them with my son, who's like now he's 15, but he was like 13 or 12, and they're subtitled, and they're a little slow at the beginning. At the end, it's always the baby cart's upside down, and there's a machine gun gunning down ninjas, like in droves.
A
Um,
machine gun.
oh yeah, he's got guns and stuff built into the baby cart. That's like half the
Oh my
joy.
god.
Yeah, it's like the show is like nuts. The comic was not. I mean, it was in the comic too, right? That's the whole thing. He's like taking on like this, the I think the Eaga Ninja, right? This whole assassin clan. He's just going around like trying to raise money so he can buy all the guns he needs to wipe them out. He's doing it any way he can. That's why he takes on all these missions. That's why he's an assassin, so he can raise the money to put like guns in the baby cart. That's the
Take care
like
of the
the big
cub.
reveal. Yeah, yeah. And the kid's amazing. The kid's just like this 3 year old, and he's like watching his dad like murder people. He's like stone cold killer, and that's the whole thing about the kid, right? That he's like, sorry son, I raised you in a world of like blood and violence, and I guess this is just the life you have. And he gave him a choice, right? Because his wife was killed, and he's like, son, you're either gonna come with me, and we're gonna live with no honor on a life of revenge, or I can kill you right now. And the kid was like 1.5 or 2, and he like picks the life of revenge, and that's it. That's his story.
It's like he crawls towards the knife. He's like, okay, this
Yeah,
is a
yeah.
sign.
It's totally. That's exactly the scene, right? And then they just go on, and he's got the baby card. He's always pushing the baby card, and they're getting in, adventures and killing people for money, or fighting the ninja catch up to them, and they have to kill 70 ninja. And the movies were again, they're a little slow for American standards. Really, really well done if you like that sort of thing. Um, but I loved all that stuff. And then Mandalorian and Grogu's got the very similar vibe.
Do you like,
It's
Kurosawa movies?
Yeah, yeah. I've seen maybe not all of them, but a lot of them. A lot of Kurosawa, a lot of like ooh, what's the guy? Blind Swordsman, Zatoichi.
Mm-hmm.
I was collecting Zatoichi movies for a while. I think I watched like 30 of them. Get a little repetitive. It's kind of cool. Blind guy with a sword. You know, it's always funny. He's
Yeah.
like can't see, but he's like slashing people up, and those were all good. Maybe not good, but they were fun. Have you watched Kurosawa?
I've seen a few of his films, and I've enjoyed all of them to a different
Yeah.
extent. I really
Yeah.
enjoy Ron.
Yeah.
That's probably my favorite of his movies so far.
Yeah.
I actually watched The Sword of Doom the other night, which is like a samurai movie about this guy who just goes around murdering people. You know, it's
I feel like I've seen it, and now I can't remember it. Watched a lot of samurai movies. I went through a whole
I want to watch more
long period.
samurai movies. I just haven't like found the time to do it because I'm
I don't have time for everything. Like that's my
no.
problem. No, it's like I haven't read like so many like recent comics because I'm writing and I have a job and I've got kids, you know, and you run out of time for everything. Um, yeah, so Lone Wolf Club was good. I really like the Mandalorian. I really like the. I feel like the Mandalorian makes the Star Wars makes Star Wars better. You know, it there's this whole reading of Star Wars where like the Jedi are kind of Creed is screwed up and they were doomed to fail because they were wrong. You know, and then you watch like the whole Darth Vader story and like that was inevitable that was going to happen because the Jedi did things badly. And if you look at the first six movies as telling that story of how the Jedi were doomed to fail because their creed was screwed up,
Hmm.
it makes the whole story better to me. And then Grogu's like, no, detachment's not the answer. Like, we should be friends and like hang out with our
Yeah, one of
families.
the things that did kind of annoy me is when Luke went, we have to detach ourselves from other people. I'm like, my guy, didn't you spend the last movie not doing that? You spend the movies not doing that?
Haven't you seen that it doesn't work? Like, didn't you learn anything from Vader? Right? Like that doesn't work. It doesn't like you're not healthy that way. It's like having priests not have families of their own. You know, and then what? That's inevitably going to lead to a whole bunch of child molestation problems, and like the Catholic Church is in a huge mess right now because of it.
Mm.
It's not a good plan.
Yeah, I mean,
And
I don't know if you've seen like the Clone Wars like animated one that they did.
I've
Um,
seen very little of it. My wife's watched it all, which is sort of embarrassing. But I haven't.
Wife's
I've
a
heard good
Star
things.
Wars fan, or is she just really liked it?
I don't. I guess she is a Star Wars fan. She won't read my books, and she.
She won't read your books. That's sad.
No, no, she won't. It's kind of funny. She'll watch Marvel movies with me though. And we did a Marvel run like a few like just before Shang Chi came out. I think we watched all the movies in like chronological, not release order, but like a timeline order.
Mm-hmm.
You know, of when they were set, and
Mm-hmm.
watched them all with me, which was fun. It was fun.
Mm.
But she hasn't watched Daredevil yet. I got to get her to watch the Daredevil series one of these days. I think it's on Disney Plus.
Yeah, it is now.
Yeah,
I'm
because I
really
watch it on
hoping they
Netflix.
don't drop the ball with this new one that they're doing, because, man, that Daredevil show was so good.
What Vincent D'Onofrio as
Oh
Kingpin.
my gosh, he was so good. Oh man.
I mean, everyone was good, but they were all so good. Well, I don't know if Elektra was great. She was fine. I
Yeah,
don't know if she was.
they can't get Elektra right for whatever reason. It's really weird.
Supposedly Jennifer Gardner is going to be Elektra in the Deadpool movie.
Yeah, they're yeah, I've heard
I
that.
don't know
They're
if that's true. I saw that announcement. I don't know if it's accurate. I didn't like follow up because I don't care enough to follow up. I don't dislike Jennifer Garner. I liked her in Alias, um, which is going back away. And I like actually. I don't think she was bad in the Electra movie. I thought the Electra movie was bad, regardless. Right? There's just a bad movie. Like, she was. No one could have saved it.
That
It wasn't
you
like,
saw the Daredevil movie with Ben Affleck. It's like he's not a bad actor. It's just not a good movie.
It wasn't a good movie, but I don't think he was the problem, right? Yeah, no, I don't think he's a bad actor.
But no, then the Daredevil show came out. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so good. Like season 2 had problems, but like it was so good. Like I was like,
what's his name in the Daredevil show? The actor, Charlie Cox. Is that right? Whatever. He was fantastic.
Oh my gosh.
Everyone in that cast. His secretary, the woman,
Karen?
whose name I can't remember.
Karen?
Yeah, the blonde.
Yeah, I think
she was so good.
Yeah, she was also really good.
Foggy was great, and D'Onofrio as Kingpin was
one of the best comic book castings of all time. I think that was so good.
100% agree. 100% agree. Right up there with the first third of Luke Cage.
Oh
Luke Cage was in parts. Right, and like the end of Luke Cage was
underrated. I'm like, dude, Luke Cage is awesome.
Yeah.
That first season was really good. The second season was really good, and then they canceled it. I was like, dang it. It's really good.
Yeah.
It's good stuff.
He was really good. The actor, Colton or something. I thought he did a great Luke Cage. I never loved Luke Cage, the character, as much as I liked like Daredevil or Iron Fist. That was my problem. I loved the Iron Fist, the character, so much.
So the visual must have sucked when you watch the show and you're just like,
I'm a martial arts guy, right? I love martial arts based characters. Master Kung Fu, even though Iron Fist was not a great character, I still like read every issue of Paraman and Iron Fist that came out. I just liked I like the idea of someone training themselves up to the point where they're fighting like supervillains just on grit and hard work, you know. I like that. I think it's cool. And then that show was just awful. It was like, let's make a courtroom drama out of it, or like a corporate intrigue. I'm like, why? Why you got a martial arts guy? He can punch, can make his fist like a thing unto iron, and you want to have it like, let's have financial manipulations be the core of the show.
He's one of the most dangerous beings in the Marvel universe. Like, come on.
They got dragons to fight, and you're gonna make it about corporate finance. No, my day job is corporate finance. I don't need this. It hurt me. It hurt me so much.
I haven't, like I said, I didn't watch the Iron Fist show because I heard it was not good, like, at all.
I wouldn't if you can avoid it. Yeah, that's the one to skip. And it's a shame because there's material. It's fundamentally also, I think, like it's a hard thing to pull off today because the character's a little bit white savior. This white kid goes to this city and like he becomes the greatest fighter of all, better than all the people who grew up there and were trained their whole lives. Like, how do you explain that? You know, it's like
I think making him Asian would be a good idea, but you know.
I thought they should have made Iron Fist and given him the Shang-Chi background. Like his father's a supervillain, trained him from birth, and like now he's got these powers. They should have just melded him, and that's what I would have liked to see. But that wasn't going to happen. So.
I did like him a little more in the Defenders, but you know,
it was better, but it was too late, and they didn't get an actor who could pull off the physicality. You know, they should have gotten a guy who could. Like Charlie Cox pulled off Daredevil. He looked like a guy who could throw a punch.
Yeah.
And whatever Finn that got he famously declined to train for the role. And I'm like, I've done a lot. I have 30 years experience in martial arts. Like, I can see someone move, and I'm not saying I'm good myself, but I can watch someone move around. I'm like, I have an idea of how effective they are at fighting. Like, he was not good. You know, and that was sad.
Yeah, no. No, but like I think, but yeah, no. Daredevil was probably my favorite of the Netflix Marvel shows because
just that hallway fight scene alone.
Oh my god, it was so good, wasn't it? It was like Old Boy.
Yeah, that was crazy.
I love the prison fight as well. That was a really good one.
Yeah, that was a phenomenal. I have to rewatch that. I've only seen it once. And I have to rewatch it. But even season 2 with more and more ninjas showing up.
I really wish they'd have just stuck with the Punisher and like waited for the stuff with the hand, but then, you know, that's just me.
Yeah. I like the Punisher show.
That was good. That second season had problems, but that first season was very good. I thought. Anyway.
Yeah. It was well done. He's not my favorite character, but he was well done. It was well done. I
do
still
like
always
the
think
Punisher. It's one of my favorite Garth Ennis works is his Punisher run. Because he's just like...
I don't know that I've read that. I generally never really liked the Punisher that much. I was never a gun guy. Just
Fair enough.
generally.
Fair
But
enough.
I don't like I'm not a huge device guy. Like I never liked Iron Man. It's like, yeah, anyone could put on
You don't
armor.
like Iron Man.
I like the movies. I mean, you know,
Yeah.
and I'm not saying I hate Iron Man. It's not like I'm not going, making a big strong statement. But yeah, I got a character in my books who wears pseudo armor, and I always call him Iron Squid 'cause he's got a big squid head. And I don't
like
think
that.
half the people reading the book like even notice that I'm calling him Iron Squid in like the chapter titles. But it's a little joke for me. I like doing that. I like making little inside jokes that only certain people will appreciate. I'm one of them, so
Yeah, no, I mean, one of my, yeah, no, I mean, that's another, like, great comic book casting was Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man.
I was inspired.
Yeah,
I was inspired for both. Like, he was so good, and it was so good for him. I can't imagine he had any idea how much freaking money he was going to make off that role.
I mean, dude, he was blackballed at the time when, like, he was, like, trying to make a comeback. Like, he did, like, Tropic Thunder, which I love.
Yeah.
And then he's like, I'm going to make Iron Man, and Iron Man was just, like...
Yes. I promise, if you were, like, his friend and talked to him, he was like, yeah, I'm going to get my money, and I'll be done, and...
He's got, like, that Scrooge McDuck bunny.
Seriously, he's got crazy money from that. He made some good decisions.
Or like I love Chris Evans as Captain America. He was also very good Human Torch, even though those Fantastic Four movies had problems. Michael Chiklis is the Thing. Love that. That's another like one of my favorite comic book castings because.
Yeah, he as Captain America was fantastic. I actually like Mark Ruffalo as the Hulk. I don't know if I love it, but I like the Hulk movies weren't good, and it always made me sad because I always liked the Hulk as a character.
I know. It's like, dude, you can do stuff with the Hulk, and you're not doing it.
And Lee was like, "What if we take the Hulk, we make it all about his feelings?" And I'm like, "No, Hulk smash. Got it. Hulk
it's the psychological torment in the Hulk smash. That's what.
Yeah. The only good Hulk movie was Thor 3.
Yeah.
That's the only good Hulk movie ever made. Him being beaten by Thanos, that's not a good Hulk movie. But Thor 3...
One of my favorite gags in that movie is when he's like, "Don't worry, guys. I got this." And he jumps out to turn into the Hulk, and he just plops on the ground because he had to turn it. Because he can't get the Hulk. The Hulk doesn't want to come out.
Some inspired lines in that movie. He's my friend from work. When Thor's talking about the Hulk, he's my friend from work. Yeah. And I'm like, that's a fantastically funny.
He's a friend from work. Yeah, it was great.
Like, beautiful writing. That was a really good movie. I
was a bit disappointed with Thor 4 because I love the gore arc of the Thor. I don't know if you've read that arc, but it is so good. And then they did the movie. I was like, oh, they didn't do it right.
Read parts of it. I didn't love it. Because I get too bogged down in like what the gods are and what it all means and how it all fits together.
Wait, you do, or you thought the book did?
The movie did it poorly. I don't remember how it panned out in the comics. I don't remember if it bothered me at all. I think it was just it came out at a time where I wasn't reading a lot of comics. I got divorced and I just didn't have a lot of time or space to put them in, and then I didn't catch up on everything with Kindle Unlimited. Not Kindle Unlimited, Marvel Unlimited. I had that for a bit and I never quite caught up. There's some good Thor stories though. I mean, I remember the Walt Simonson.
I've heard he's good. I haven't read any of his stuff, but I've heard he's good. He did introduce Beta Ray Bill. I do like Beta Ray Bill. I wish they have him in the movies, but I don't know if they're going to do that.
They kind of let Simonson, they let him have free reign on the artwork because it wasn't selling a ton, I don't think, the Thor title. And he came out with the Beta Ray Bill, and he was like this very sort of, I don't know how to describe it, powerful art. It just, you could feel like the hammer, blows, you could... I can't describe it, but art really felt It wasn't super detailed, but the lines were just so strong, and like the imagery was so potent. And everyone was buying Thor, like getting like that issue at 337. It's like 25 years, 30 years later, and I remember the issue number, right, where he started. I think it was 337. You're gonna look it up. You're gonna make me look stupid if I'm wrong. No, I'm kidding. But that was just good stuff. I like Walter Simonson. He did this graphic novel called Star Slammers that was really good.
I need to check out some of like the older guys, like John. I do like John Byrne's stuff in the X-Men, but I've heard he did like a Fantastic Four run, and he did a Superman.
I remember being really good. I haven't reread it since it came out, but I remember really liking it.
I remember he did a Superman run, which I've heard is good, and
I've heard good things. I have not read that. I like this Fantastic Four run a lot. At least X-Men stuff was groundbreaking. The continuing storylines, the Dark Phoenix saga, like that stuff was groundbreaking for comics at the time.
Oh, I think it's still good. Like I read it like a few years ago, and I'm like, man, this is good. Way better.
Yeah.
Now, Claremont is admitted he can get a little soapy at times, but like he is a very talented writer, and he really made the X. He made like Stan Lee and Jack Kirby created them, but like Claremont really made the X-Men who we love today, in my opinion. Anyway.
It wasn't a top selling title until they took over, right? I think they had 50 issues, and then issues like 50 to 94 were like reprints. Then they got the new X-Men, and then they handed it over to Byrne and Claremont, and that's when it became a thing. Mm-hmm. Before that, it wasn't a big title. It wasn't like everyone knew the X-Men. There was a title before them, and they really turned it into something. Then they just decided, let's have 1,000 mutants in there.
Yeah. I'm still waiting for a proper good because I'm a big Wolverine fan, and I love because I fell in love with the movies. Hugh Jackman also a top tier casting right there, in my opinion.
He's too tall, but other than that,
yeah, he's too tall. But aside from that, also the guy from the old '90s cartoon of the X-Men is also a very good Wolverine, I thought.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's like, man, like I've read a couple of Wolverine stories, but they really jumped the shark a lot. I'm like, it can't be that hard to make a good Wolverine story. Though I do like the Claremont one he did with Frank Miller quite a bit.
That was one of the first times we really got like Wolverine on his own, like splitting off. Like it was a different era in comics. You didn't have every character getting their own like spin-off series and limited series. Like it happened occasionally. It wasn't super common, and then Miller and Claremont got that limited series, and they're like, "Oh, people will buy comics with just Wolverine in it. Like, oh, that's cool. Let's do more of that." And then the whole thing just took off.
Yeah, or like another great comic book casting, Ryan Reynolds is Deadpool. Though I had some problems with Deadpool 2. It got really sappy, and also I'm really on and off with meta humor. Like, it's great in the first one, but like I have my limits with meta humor.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of fourth wall breaking because it like takes me out of the story a little bit, and I almost never like it, which is one reason Deadpool's never been like my favorite character.
No, yeah, I'm the same way though. The Jerry Dugan Deadpool run was really good, and it actually made him an interesting character. Like,
yeah, I heard a lot of good things.
Like, legit. I'm like, because I'm not a huge Deadpool fan. Like, I like the movie. The first one I really enjoy, and the second one I'm like, okay, it's pretty good, but like that run, like it actually made like Deadpool an interesting character.
Was Deadpool a Liefeld creation, or am I remembering it wrong?
What'd you say?
Did Rob Liefeld create Deadpool, or
yes,
am I remembering that wrong?
Yes, he did. He co-created. Not a Liefeld fan. Don't get me wrong. I don't like him either. I don't like his artwork either.
I mean, I'm nothing against the guy as a human being, right? I don't know anything about him. He might be a terrible jerk. I have no idea, or he might be a wonderful guy. I have no idea.
I've heard both. Like I've heard some people be like, "Man, he's a really cool guy," and I've heard some people be like, "He's kind of a dick."
I have no idea, but I mean, I'm not saying anything about
No. But you don't like his artwork, I'm guessing.
No, the thing is, I kind of there's something cool about it. Like he makes pinups. Some of them are terrible, like just the proportions. I'm like, why can you not keep the proportions straight?
Like his
'Cause you
infamous,
look
infamous
so
Captain America
infamous.
one.
I don't know. I just looked at one a few days ago. Someone reprinted one with like Cable. His legs were like skinnier than his like forearms or than his wrists. And I'm like the thighs. His thighs were thinner than his wrists. I'm like, why? Why? How could you not notice that as an artist? Like, but there's something cool about if he gets the proportions okay, his character designs are kind of cool looking. Like it was interesting for the time. I just feel like so much of it, like he just drove this era where it's like the character would get put into the comic if they could make kind of a cool pinup, and I'm like that doesn't make a good character. Like that's not enough. And this art-driven like era of comics that just made comics worse for a while.
I mean, with the '90s, I don't love that era. I've read some from that era, and like I like Todd McFarlane's art. I think he's like a competent, draughtsman. I respect Jim Lee. I wouldn't say I'm a fan of his artwork, but I do respect his talent. Liefeld is just like, oh man.
Any of them are watching and any of them want to draw the comic adaptation of Wistful Ascending, I will happily accept any of them. Any of them. Right? They can all, they're all better than me.
But like,
That's not.
I mean, it's just like, there's a lot of great artists out there that I'm like,
It's bad for the industry when covers are selling books.
yeah, exactly.
Bottom line, right?
But that 90s Spider-Man run isn't bad that McFarlane was doing.
I like McFarlane. I don't think McFarlane's terrible. I read a lot of Spawn. I thought it was pretty good.
His though I will admit it does get convoluted with the symbiote, and I'm not a big Venom fan, so.
Yeah, and they've really taken Venom places. They've done a lot with that character, and I was like, really? Okay. I was never a huge Venom fan. I never hated him.
That recent run I enjoyed what I read of it anyway.
I remember when he first got the black costume in the Secret Wars.
Cool.
Yeah, I kind of liked it. I was a fan. I was like all about the black costume and the Venom storyline. I was like, okay. No, I like McFarlane. I like Savage Dragon. Eric Larson.
I haven't read Savage Dragon, but I like that costume. I'm like, okay, this could either be like really silly and just run with it, or like it'll just be like another like kind of '90s. Ooh, I'm so brooding.
It's kind of both,
and I'm like,
it's not too brooding. It's a little bit like it's like a comic book soap opera.
Oh yeah,
a little bit.
Well,
I wouldn't say it's good. I'm not saying like you got to go read it right now because it's amazing. Like if you haven't read Preacher, I'm like go read Preacher.
I love it.
If you read Savage Dragon, I'm like, yeah, if you want, give it a try because like it's kind of fun. But that's all it is. Like but you got to respect Larson for just pumping out and like sticking to his title. He put out a lot of issues. Like he told stories and he finished things and he not handed off after 15 issues to someone else.
Well, I mean, like something like Liefeld, like some of it, it's just goof. Like a lot of it's like goofy caricature. After a while, like Young Blood and like what's that other one he did?
I don't think he meant Young Blood as goofy caricature. I think he meant it to be serious, right?
That's the thing. He's like, I think he was wanting it to be taken seriously, and it's just so.
I really think he did, right? It's like you watch Bubba 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 Bubba, and like they weren't trying to be like this is going to be cool. They were trying to be this is going to be funny, right? I don't think Youngblood was supposed to be funny. It may have been funny. Look at this guy's thighs, right? But it wasn't supposed to be.
Though, I mean, they did. I will give him credit where it's due. He did help make Image, and Image has a lot of great comics now. So yeah, like.
Yeah, and Image is really good for a whole bunch of creators, I think.
Oh, I agree. Yeah.
They came out with a bunch of cool stuff, and Invincible.
Invincible's awesome. Yeah.
Invincible's awesome.
Especially that Ryan Ottley artwork. Oh my gosh, it's so good. Especially the battle stuff. Oh, man.
Yeah. I almost feel like Invincible is like if you could read one superhero comic, it would be hands down. I would say read Invincible because so much of what I love about superhero comics is in there somewhere. Like somehow it's like stuck in that, you know, whatever number of volumes that Invincible has. Just so much good stuff in there. There's so many riffs on like good characters and love it. Do love it. What's the big tiger dude?
Battle Beast. Oh, I love him.
Battle
Love
Beast.
Battle Beast. So good.
He's fantastic. And the one-eyed guy, I'm terrible with names.
Oh,
Um,
hold like
the alien who's like overlooking Earth.
I'm trying to find like a good, like panel from like Ryan Otley's
But that's
artwork
the
here.
thing. That's the thing. It's like it wasn't panels. It wasn't like he would do a two-page spread. Like that's what Liefeld would do, right? He'd make like a cool two-page spread, but he didn't really tell the story. But Invincible, the artwork, it's like it's telling a phenomenal story. The storytelling in the art
With
is
great
great.
art as well. I'm not saying like the art is the reason you should go check out Invincible. It's just like,
No.
but it is a very good like it is. The art is also it's fantastic.
Yeah.
Like,
It's not that there's a two-page spread that's going to blow your mind. It's that every panel is good. Every
also,
panel like moves the story
like
along and it really
for the
like,
show,
tells you
I
something.
can't wait to I can't wait for them to do the conquest fight because and dude, it's so good. Oh man.
Yeah, the show doesn't get talked about enough, and it always makes me sad. But the show is so good.
Yeah, I know. Like the voice casting's really good, and like it's just yeah, it's great stuff.
I just think the pacing was better than the comic.
Yeah, no,
I mean,
especially those first ones when they were kind of like trying to find their groove a bit. Yeah, definitely improves.
but it felt like a guy trying to tell his story a little bit better, as opposed to a guy trying to get a paycheck.
Yeah,
Like Kirkman was looking at this and saying, I there's some things, because you also have to figure, like, he wrote the comic like monthly for 10 years or 12 years or whatever it was, right? Like, 12 years, you're not the same creator 12 years later. You're not the same artist. You've progressed in your craft after all that time. You're going to look back at the first book and say, I can tell some of these stories a little bit better, or make it a little cleaner, get my theme across in a stronger way. And I feel like he's doing that in the show. He's not going to go rewrite the comic because that's not going to work.
I mean, look at that. Oh,
Yeah,
that Ryan Otley
yeah,
artwork. So
yeah.
good.
It's really good stuff. It's really, Ryan Otley. If you want a property to adapt, call me. Obviously, that's not happening. But
Yeah, no,
I
it's
can agree.
no. I mean, I love but yeah, no, Invincible's one of those like it reminds me why I love superhero comics so much. It's like DC to New Frontier or
So you said you read Starlin's Infinity Gauntlet. Have you read Dreadstar?
I am not.
That was a big influence on me too. That's like more straight like sci-fi or science fantasy.
I have
Like
to
it's a
check that
cosmic
out.
thing. I really liked Dreadstar. It's not that easy to find right now. Is the problem? It was not. I think it started off in Epic. Marvel had this like imprint, like sort of like a
They've had a few
magazine.
imprints.
Yeah. But it was yeah. Starlin was a big influence on me. The cosmic stuff. Um, Invincible. What else?
8:30.
There's so many titles. Now, again, I was listening to you talk to this guy the other day. We were talking about manga, and he kept mentioning favorite manga of mine, like Baki the Grappler and Fist of the
Oh,
North.
oh yeah, the manly anime. Yeah, that was that was
Manly
good.
anime. I love that stuff. Like Baki the Grappler. It's awful, but it's like just cheesy fun.
Yeah, no, I
Um,
mean I try to I like more like story based stuff, but like there's sometimes I just like to sit back and read like an over the top good time.
Baki the Grappler is that, or Dragon Ball Z. Dragon Ball Z
Yeah.
was a big influence on me too. I've had people compare my story, my book to like Dragon Ball Z set on Deep Space Nine. Like, I'll
Ah,
take that. That's accurate.
yeah, Deep
You know?
Space Nine's my favorite Star Trek thing. So, yeah.
I think it should be everyone's favorite Star Trek. I love that show. I love that show so much. I didn't even watch Babylon 5 for like half a season because I was like, no, Deep Space Nine is better. I'm going to stick to this one. And I finally caved and I watched B5, which is coming out on Blu-ray.
Yeah, I saw you tweeting about that. I've never watched Babylon 5. Maybe someday.
Babylon 5 is another one of those like, if I could travel back in time, what would I do? I would kidnap Rob Liefeld and keep him away from Marvel. And I would somehow, right? Just what would Marvel have been if Liefeld had never gotten his hands on like New Mutants, and like sold so many comics and been such an influence on them? We would have saved a decade worth of reading. And I wish I could go back because the thing about B5 is B5 was a story. It was meant to be told in 5 seasons. Right? Told it, and it was really, really like there were threads. There were things happening in the very first episode that didn't pay off for like 2 years. It's very unusual for TV ever, especially at that time. And they got to season 3, and they got season 4, but they weren't approved for season 5. But when they started season 4, they took the end, the final, the whole story, and they squeegeed it in right, into like season 4. They finished. Then they're like, "Oh, we'll renew you." And then they had a season 5 where they really didn't have the right amount of material. So the pacing was like at 3 seasons of what felt like it could be a phenomenal, phenomenal show. And it was still really good, but it wasn't what it could have been. You know, because ideally, you know, someone should have said, no, we'll give you your 5 years and we promise. But that's not what happened. I'll always regret that because I feel like it could have been, it was great and it could have been like an all-time amazing thing. And it didn't quite get there. I really liked it. It just did some really interesting things with and it had some good sci-fi elements too, like just really interesting things, like the way a lot of the ships worked was kind of consistent with physics, which you just didn't see in most science fiction, you know, at the time. But not all. But they did a lot of intelligent things with that show, and I like the effects, although they have not aged well. CGI is tough.
Every time I hear of Babylon 5, I always think of Sheldon on Big Bang Theory, always like bashing on it. I've never seen it. Again, that's what like I love sci-fi. I would love to watch Babylon 5 at some point. I just haven't gotten around to it.
Coming out on Blu-ray sometime soon. Apparently, there was one executive at Warner who hated B5 and like stopped any kind of projects from happening. But other people, and he retired.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, the floodgates have opened, and Straczynski's always been willing to do stuff, and Straczynski's pretty good. I've liked a lot of his stuff over the years.
I did like his Spider-Man run until he did One More Day. But that wasn't really his fault. That was more like Joe Quesada. Joe Quesada being like, "Oh, we should do this," and I'm like, "What?"
I like the Spider-Man run. I didn't love his Spider-Man, but I liked the Spider-Man run. He did a standalone like superhero universe. I forget who published it. It was pretty good, not great, but pretty good. He's done a lot of science fiction stuff. But Babylon 5 is phenomenal. And now he's like, we'll do more. And I'm like, okay. So they have an animated show coming out about Babylon 5, like, animated movie. Coming out at some point. Not, I think, like, they finished. I think
a lot of these properties, like, you know, Star Trek and Star Wars, like, it could do really good in animation. And I don't know why they're not doing it.
Yeah. I don't know. There's a lot about the business.
Star Wars is capped the vein, though. They're like, oh, we got Dave Filoni. We got some great animators and writers. Let's go for it. You know.
Yeah, I don't understand. I don't understand why they're not paying writers.
I don't know either. Yeah,
I'm like, really? You need to piss off the writers? Like you can't. Like you're making such record. I don't know. It's weird. Maybe there's some explanation that makes sense that I'm just unaware of. But I'm amazed at how many bad movies get made. You know, where you watch a movie and you're like, this could have been really good, but instead you didn't get like a decent script, and like why is that? You know, and I'm like, so something's gone wrong in places that I can't put my finger on. But you know, what do I know?
Yeah, no, I mean, MCU has really solidified my appreciation for Marvel. I mean, Captain America, like, I didn't think of him for, like, he was one of my least thought of superheroes. And then I started watching the Captain America MCU movies. I'm like, this guy's one of my favorite characters now.
Did it?
He's awesome.
I have liked almost everything Marvel has done. I have at least liked, if not loved. And I feel like people are kind of crapping on a lot of their stuff lately, and I'm trying to figure out exactly what went wrong. And it might just be saturation. I like the
Probably.
Loki show. Like, if you just think about the Loki show, I think it's good.
Oh
But
yeah.
then you think about like all the shows and how you get a new show every few months, and maybe that's just too much. I like She-Hulk,
I
but
didn't. I
like
only watched the Daredevil episode, and I thought it was pretty good. But aside from that, I didn't watch it.
it wasn't like amazing. It was pretty funny and it was entertaining, right? If you just want to spend like half an hour and you got nothing else to do, watching an episode of She-Hulk is not going to be bad. It's not going to be a bad time, right? But it wasn't like amazing and it's not groundbreaking and it's not big stakes, right? It's a very slice of life kind of show. It's like it's a cozy superhero.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like she's not saving the world, She-Hulk, right? She's not. People aren't dying. It's like much lower stakes. And it's kind of neat that Marvel's like doing that stuff, but you get the saturation problem, and I don't know the answer to that. Like they want more content. Did you see the Werewolf by Night?
What?
Did you see the Werewolf by Night?
I
The one
did. That was very good.
right? Like
I'm like,
it was
hey,
good.
Giacchino, he's great at scores. He's also really good at directing too.
Who knew, right? Like
I
you just pull out this thing, almost no fanfare. I barely heard about it. And it came out, and Moon Knight was coming out. I really like that. I'm a big
Moon Knight
fan.
has so much untapped potential. Like you could do so much with him, and they're not.
I'm always going to be a contrarian with Moon Knight because I'm a big fan of the early Moon Knight.
I
It
haven't
was
read the
led,
early Moon Knight.
and I was reading it when it came out. Sienkiewicz. It was early Sienkiewicz. Before Sienkiewicz went full on, I'm a painter, and his art got really abstract.
Yeah,
He was painting. He was drawing more like a normal Marvel artist, just a good one. And Moon Knight was just like a Batman ripoff, but I really liked it. And early on, there was much less of this sense of he's a guy suffering from mental illness. His other personas were really just like disguises, and it wasn't really like this guy is having a full-on psychotic break in every issue. It's more like pretending to be a cab driver so he can get information about where the bad guys are. That was
so
good.
like the Shadow.
Yeah, yeah. And I really liked it. And then they really played up the multiple personality stuff, and I'm like, I like it. Don't get me wrong. I'll watch it and I'll read it, but I like the old style a little more. Um, I'm just being like overly like insane all the time gets old.
Yeah,
Me.
no, there's like I haven't read the Warren Ellis one, but I read like the first volume of the Jeff Lemire run. I really like that. And Greg Smallwood is a very good artist, I thought. I
Yeah,
think.
that was good.
I need
I
to
read
read
that
the
on
rest.
Marvel.
Wait, what'd you say?
I read that on Marvel Unlimited on my phone. I did enjoy it. Did enjoy it.
Um, yeah, no, like just like I've been kind of frustrated with superhero comics recently because it's like they keep getting wrapped up with the continuity, and I'm like, God, just write good stories, guys. You know, come on.
I liked Immortal Iron Fist. Did you read
Um,
those? Who was it? Brubaker, I think. I'm not positive.
I was gonna ask you if you've read that because I've heard that's a very good run, the one he did with Fraction, and I have
I,
not read
I,
it, but I've heard it's very good.
I really liked it. I mean, again, I think the character is inherently just a tiny bit problematic, and he's not my favorite character, but that run was really good. That run was real. I really like that. It's I fundamentally like these stories where they take this concept of this character and they expand it. Right? He went to this mystical city, got these magic powers from this dragon. They're like, well, if there's one mystical city, wouldn't there? Maybe there are more. So what if there were like 7? I forget how many there are, but they come up with a number, right? And they're like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, each one would have its own eternal, like its own champion, but with different kinds of powers. And I'm like, this is fundamentally, I like this. You're taking this idea and you're just saying, let's dig a little deeper into this core concept of this character and like where are we going to go with it. I really liked it, and it was also good stories.
I do like Brubaker quite a bit. I do love his
I
stuff
can't think
with
of anything he's written that I didn't like. But,
yeah, no, like I would say like his criminal series is like a better version of Sin City. It's kind of my hot take.
I don't think I've read that.
I love his Daredevil run. I really enjoy his Captain America run as well.
I think I read that either, but I read his Daredevil run.
What'd you say?
Oh, cool. I don't think I've read his Captain America run, but I've read the Daredevil. I really liked the Daredevil stuff, and the Iron Fist was really good.
I mean, it's tough to follow up Brian Michael Bendis's Daredevil run, which was just baller, but he did a very good job, I thought.
Yeah, there was a lot of good Daredevil stuff for a long time. I'm not entirely sure why. I'm like, why is this character getting so much talent? I guess it sold. I don't know.
Yeah. I've heard Zdarsky, or I read the first volume of Zdarsky's run, the new one. I like that quite a bit. It's also read.
I am not caught up. I was on Marvel Unlimited for a bit. I haven't read comics in like a year, I think, or two.
I don't know if you've read. I know you mentioned you like the Hulk. Have you read Immortal Hulk?
I read some of it, and I have mixed feelings.
Oh, I love it.
About
well. There's some I love, and then there's some other ones where it's like more standard, like Hulk smash stories. I'm like, oh, I like this more horror direction you're doing. I want to see more of the Green Door stuff.
I had mixed feelings about the Green Door stuff because it felt like too much RetroCon. I'm like, really? After like 50 years, you're gonna tell me that he's actually like all this other stuff? And then he got all skinny, and I'm like, dude, you can't take my Hulk and make him all skinny. Get him a meal. I forget. And then the leader, something happened with the leader, and I got annoyed.
I haven't gotten that far yet, but because I'm also like you, I'm terrible at keeping up with the comics. I'm so bad at keeping up.
Hulk. Okay, so you're at the part that I like more of Immortal Hulk, and you haven't gotten to the parts that I like less. There's parts later that I like less, but
Hulk
Immortal Hulk
is awesome. An Abomination I liked, but I liked how they did the Abomination, but I'd had some issues with the pacing, but that's with a lot of comics. I have a lot of problems with pacing in comics because it's tough to do.
Think it's too slow or too fast or
too fast. A lot of it is too fast, is what I've seen. My partner in crime wants to come in, a cat. She's in one of my videos. But yeah, I'm so bad. Like, I have like Daniel Warren Johnson's like Beta Ray Bill book up there. I gotta go read, or I want to read at some point.
A friend of mine got me to get the Animal Man Compendium, and it's like this huge book with it's like 40 issues of the comic and like a just giant volume. And I'm like, I bought it because he's like, it's so good. I'm like, okay, I'll buy it, and I bought it, and it's like on a shelf. I haven't cracked it open yet.
Well, which one? Like, because I know there's a couple of like good ones. Like, I know Grant Morrison did a good one, and like Jeff Lemire.
Oh, I don't remember now. It was like 40 issues worth.
But yeah, no, it's like it's been tough. It's been tough being reading superhero comics.
Yeah.
At least recently. I'm sure there's the good stuff. I just haven't been really bad at keeping up with them.
I can't find it. I might remember if I'd actually like read it.
No, I mean, God, what's the last like superhero comic I really enjoyed? I really enjoyed Batman the Imposter from like it came out around the time of the movie The Batman. I really liked that one. But then again, I'm a big Batman nerd, so I'm wearing the Batman shirt today.
Yeah.
So.
That's a good question. I read a bunch of the X-Men stuff around when they got to the island and they were all immortal. I thought it was kind of neat. But I didn't. Then I stopped before they got to the conclusion. I don't even know where the story is right now. I'm sure. I mean, the whole point is that the X-Men are going to be happy. You're going to have to like destroy them somehow.
Yeah.
Break my heart. And, it's always going to bug me. Like, that's my fundamental problem with X-Men titles. I'm like, yeah, I get it.
There's too many of them. They don't know what to do with the X-Men. That's the problem.
I enjoyed some of the Avengers stuff that came out just a few years ago. With the Phoenix story and the recent Avengers run. some of the Avengers, like 1 million BC stuff, was kind of cool. I gotta read more comics. I've been really bad. Writing. Writing takes up a lot of time.
I know, yeah, it does. It very much does.
I haven't watched a lot of movies or shows as much as I used to.
I was I was gonna ask you real quick. I saw like on your like little your little Discord thing. It said author of Wistful Ascending and Rise of the Griffin. Is Rise of the Griffin part of that same series you're doing?
Yeah. So right now that's my point. I'm trying to. What I meant to say is I'm trying to do like a series of books. So the series is called the Hybrid Helix. Book 1, Wistful Ascending, and I have 3 out right now. Return to the Griffin is book 2.
Okay.
Same character, right? Same guy. Continuing.
I see that. He looks like an X-Man.
Yeah. And then Blood Reunion, and in this, his shirt is very torn up.
Oh no!
And I just got the artwork for book 4, and his shirt's completely gone in that cover. I don't do the art, right? I hire a guy. His shirt's gone, so I'm like, I figure in book 5 we're gonna see his junk. I'm gonna have to tell the artist, look, whatever you do, he's got to keep his pants on because I'm not looking for that market. Maybe I'll just go full in and hit the romance market. I'll sell more books. But no, it's a continuing series. I'm trying to write like a big story. I'm trying to do something like Invincible or like Harry Dresden. I'm trying to write like, ideally, I'm going to hopefully get to like 20 books.
Well, if it's inspired by Invincible, I'm definitely interested in checking it out now. Cause
very inspired by Invincible.
I'm just love Invincible.
No,
these are thick boys, by the way. These are really like.
Those are the I started buying the individual volumes in hardcover, and I bought like 3, and then I stopped for a while, and then I got the big ones you have, and I'm like, okay, these are just cheaper.
Yeah, I know. I'm just like I'm like I don't want to get all the same. I'm getting on the basis.
I get so I'm moving to a new house. I'm gonna have shelves behind me so I can do these videos with like bookshelves. Because if you're an author, you're supposed to have bookshelves behind you, and I got to get those compendiums lined up like right. I'm very aware of like which books are right behind like a person on YouTube, like which are near their head. That's what you're drawing attention to, right? So I want to get those Invincible compendiums like right next to my head on a shelf. But my series is definitely, it's like a continuing story. Characters change, like you get backstory.
Oops, excuse me, real quick. About give me like 5 minutes and I'll wrap up here. Yeah. Sorry, my cat and my mom came in. What were you saying?
Really cool. I'm trying to get like I like these stories where like you find out more about the universe, where like relationships develop and grow, maybe powers change over time very slowly. The only way to do that is to write a bunch of books.
Yeah, no, that sounds fun. I might.
And you see it in Invincible. He undergoes one of the phenomenal things about that series is that the character grows and changes very nicely and gradually over time.
Mm-hmm.
Like you look at Invincible in like Volume 1, and he's a kid, and he makes mistakes. Sometimes he repeats them, and he learns from them, and he grows, and he's a different guy in Volume 12.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really like solid the way they do that, and like that's my goal. That's what I love to read. So hopefully you'll see some, but it's a little different because I'm not starting with a teenager.
Yeah.
Sorry. The other thing is I don't like the. I've never been a huge fan of the whole. What do they call it? The hero's journey. So I'm like, basis book 1, the hero journey already happened. He's come out the ass end of the hero's journey. And this is what happens after that. He's been a hero. He's fought in the wars. He's gotten his powers. Now what? So I'm starting from a different place. But I want a thing where you can look back. Hopefully, if in a little bit, you'll be able to look back and say, okay, in these 10 books, stuff changed.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. It's hard.
Yeah,
but,
no. Well, I'm getting really hungry. I have to go eat, but this has been fun.
It has been. It's been great.
I
Thanks for having
enjoyed
me.
this chat.
Oh, absolutely. Thanks for having me. I appreciate the invite.
We should do this again at some point.
Absolutely.
If you'd like to share some of your social media before we get going, feel free.
Oh, yeah. You should go to my website, jcmberne.com, and it's Berne, like the capital of Switzerland.
It's like Bernie.
Yes, Berne. JCM Berne, that's my website. And then you should hit up my Twitter, which is Joe Berne1, JoeBerne1, the number one.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm on Twitter quite a bit, and I'm on Discord a lot. And I'm on social media too much. It's not good. It's not good, but I can't help it. And I have a YouTube channel where I do occasional videos about topics.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll do like a video on like what's the difference between science fiction and fantasy. I'll do a video on like well you saw what is deconstruction
Mm-hmm.
and stuff like that.
Yeah,
So if
I've
you're
seen some of your
interested,
videos. I might want to watch more of them at some point. But yeah, I just saw that one. I'm like, I have opinions on this. So.
and you had good opinions on it. I watched yours; it was excellent. I
Uh,
definitely thought you had good points to make. So
but
that's my socials.
but yeah, again, thank you for coming on. I hope you guys enjoyed this. You can check me out on Twitter as well. I'm not on there so much, but I'm also on Goodreads and Letterboxd. I write stuff on there, and yeah, no. Again, thank you, Joe, for coming on. I've really thoroughly enjoyed this chat.
Take care.
All right, everyone. See you guys later. Until next time.